Are you an owner of a business and you have created a form with the help of which you're collecting the order inquiries from your customers and you want to generate invoices of those order inquiries but you're still doing this manually? Then this video is just for you. So hello everyone, welcome back to Pabbly. In this video we are going to learn how to create wave invoice on Elementor Form submission. So I am an owner of an online business and with the help of Elementor I have created an order inquiry form. I want that as soon as a new form submission is going to be done by the customer with the help of Elementor and they are going to generate the order inquiry. According to the inquiry, I want to create an invoice in my Wave account. Now for creating the invoices, if I'm going to do this manually, it will be very time consuming. So what I did was I simply automated this entire process with the help of Pabbly Connect, which is an amazing automation and integration software. And here in this automation, I'm going to build a connection between Elementor and Wave with the help of it. So if you also want to learn about this amazing automation process step by step and you also want to check how this process works, then let me take you all to my screen.
Welcome to my screen. In this video, we're going to learn how to create Wave invoice on Elementor Form submission. So this is the form that I've created with the help of Elementor. You can see right over here. And I'm going to show you how this automation is going to work. So this is the form that I've created of the order inquiry form. With the help of this form, the inquiries are going to be generated. So I'm going to fill in the details of my customer right over here first. So as you can see, I've filled in the form. First name as test, last name as person, email as testperson@pabblytudes.com for the dummy mobile number, the mobile number, state address as 123 New City, city as Bhopal, state as Madhya Pradesh, country as India, that is IN, for the PIN code, the dummy PIN code. For the product name for which I'm generating the query, I've selected as smartphone. For the quantity, I've selected it as 10 and for the due date, I've selected the due date. After entering all the required details, I'm going to click on the send button, okay? As I've clicked on send button, it says submission was successful. This means the form submission with the help of Elementor is done. As now the submission is done, I'm going to go back to my Wave account. This is my Wave account, all invoice pages. So I'm going to refresh this page from here. As I've refreshed the page, you can see over here a new invoice has been created in my Wave account. I'm going to open this invoice from here. You can see the invoice for test person has been successfully created in my Wave account. The name comes as test person 1. You can see right over here. Okay. Over here, we received the invoice number, the invoice date and the payment due. You can see right over here with the email address. The product that we have selected as smartphone with the description. You can see right over here. Quantity comes as 10. The unit price comes as 15,000. The amount price comes as 1,50,000. So you can see the invoice is automatically being created in my Wave account after we have done the form submission using Elementor. And this is done with the help of the automation that we have created between Elementor and Wave with the help of Pabbly Connect. So I am an owner of an e-commerce store and with the help of Elementor, I have created an order inquiry form. I want that as soon as the form submission is going to be done with the help of Elementor by the customer for the order inquiry that they have, automatically I want to create the invoice of that customer in my Wave account. And for that, I've created this automation with Pabbly Connect. Okay, so on the screen, you can see the website of Pabbly Connect, that is pabbly.com/connect. After browsing this website, we need to sign in to our Pabbly Connect account. But if you're a new user, you can sign up for free and get 100 free tasks every month. So as I'm an existing user, I'm going to sign into my Pabbly Connect account. After signing in, you can see the All Pabbly Apps window in front of you, in which you can see all the applications of Pabbly, from which we are going to select Pabbly Connect by clicking on this Access Now button. Then Pabbly Connect's dashboard is going to appear in front of you. In order to start an automation process in Pabbly Connect, we need to create a workflow. For that, click on this top right corner button right over here that says Create Workflow. A dialog box is then going to appear in front of you, which is asking for the workflow name and for us to select a folder. So for the name of my workflow over here, I'm going to give it as Create Wave Invoice on Elementor Form Submission. This is the name that I want to give to my workflow, okay? After that, it is asking for us to select a folder. So on the left side of my screen, you can see I've created multiple folders in my Pabbly Connect account, from which I'm going to select a specific folder in which I want to save this workflow in. Further, click on this drop down. These are the folders from which I'm going to select Wave Automations as the folder I want to save this workflow in. After giving the name to the workflow and selecting the folder, I'm going to click on this Create button in order to create a workflow. A workflow is created in the name of Create Wave Invoice on Elementor Form Submission, and there are two windows in front of you. One over here says Trigger, other says Action. So what is Trigger and Action? Trigger and action are the two most important steps of our automation process because our process depends on these two concepts. Over here, trigger says when this happens and action says do this. That means that action, what is it? It's a response towards our trigger. In an automation process, there can be only one trigger step but multiple action steps. We are going to set up our trigger step. For the trigger application, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as Elementor. As with the help of Elementor, I have created a form with the help of which I am collecting my order inquiries from my customers. So I want that as soon as by the customer, the form submission is going to be done with the help of Elementor, automatically and instantly Pabbly Connect should capture the response of that. That is why for the trigger application, I've selected it as Elementor. And for the trigger event, I'm going to select as new form submission. Okay. After selecting the trigger application and the event, you can see that Pabbly Connect has provided us with a webhook URL. With the help of this unique webhook URL, we are going to build a connection between Elementor and Pabbly Connect by following the steps given here below in the help desk. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this URL from here. Now we're going to follow these steps step by step in order to connect Elementor to Pabbly Connect. For that, open the form that you have created with the help of Elementor. So this is the form that I've created over here in the name of order inquiry form. And I want to connect this form to Pabbly Connect so that whenever the form submission is going to be done with the help of this form, automatically Pabbly Connect is going to capture the response. Okay. So now to connect this form to Pabbly Connect, you can see this is the form field of this form. I'm going to click on this field right over here. After click on the form field on your page right over here on the left side of the panel, the edit form field is then going to appear in front of you, under which there are given multiple options, from which we are going to select this actions after submit option. Okay. Then I'm going to click on this add option button. And for the option over here, I'm going to select the action over here as webhook. Okay. I'm going to select the action as webhook. As I'm going to select the action, the webhook is then going to appear below right over here. I'm going to click on it. As I'm going to click on it over here, it is asking for the webhook URL. So in this field, I'm going to paste the webhook URL that Pabbly Connect has provided us. Okay. As I've pasted the webhook URL, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this publish button on the top right corner to save the changes that I've created. Okay. As now the changes are been saved, this means this form is connected to Pabbly Connect. I'm going to open my workflow and scroll down. It is saying waiting for webhook response. So now to check whether Elementor is successfully connected to Pabbly Connect or not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the test form submission of this form that I've created using Elementor. And I'm going to generate the dummy order inquiry. And after generating the inquiry, I'm going to check whether Pabbly Connect captures the response of the form submission being done or not. Okay. For that, this is the form that I've created. To do the test submission, click on this preview button right over here on the top right corner. So this is the form that I've created. This is the preview version of this form. And with the help of this, we are going to generate the test inquiry. Okay. It is asking for all the customers' details, which we are going to fill one by one. Firstly, it is asking for the first name. So for the first name over here, I'm going to write it as Smart. For the last name over here, I'm going to write it as user. For the email over here, I'm going to write it as smart@pabblytudes.com. For the phone number over here, I'm going to write in a dummy mobile number. For the street address, I'm going to write it as 12 Old City. For the city over here, I'm going to write it as Indore. For the state over here, I'm going to write it as Madhya Pradesh. For the country over here, I'm going to write in the country code right over here. For the pin code over here, I'm going to write in a dummy pin code. For the product over here, for which product do I want to generate the query? For that, I'm going to select the product as LED bulb. Okay. The quantity that I'm requesting the inquiry for is 500. For the due date over here, I'm going to write the due date as 12th of December 2024. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on this send button. As I've clicked on it, it says the submission was successful. This means the form submission has now been done with the help of Elementor. As now the form submission is done, I'm going to open my workflow that I've created using Pabbly Connect, and I'm going to check whether Pabbly Connect has captured the response of this form submission or not. For that, I'm going to open my workflow and I'm going to scroll down. And yes, you can see right over here, Pabbly Connect has captured the response of the test form submission. Let us tally the response. Over here, I've received the street address. You can see right over here for customer 12 Old City, state as Madhya Pradesh. The quantity that we've requested, the inquiry is for 500. The product is LED bulb. For the pin code, we've received the dummy pin code. For the phone number, the dummy mobile number. First name of the customer being Smart, last name as user. Email as smartuser@pabblytudes.com. Email as smart@pabblytudes.com. For the due date, country as India, that is code IN, city as Indore. So this was the response of the form submission being done with the help of Elementor. So as Pabbly Connect has captured the response, our trigger setup has now been done. My objective is that as soon as the new form submission is going to be done with the help of Elementor by the customer, automatically according to the request that has been generated by a customer, I want to create an invoice of that customer in my Wave account. Now for that, what we are going to do is we are going to set up our action step. Now in Wave, for creating the invoices, the customer should be already created. Okay. So firstly, what we're going to do is the person who have done the form submission using Elementor, we are going to search that customer in our Wave account. We're going to check whether that customer is already been created in my Wave account or not. Okay. And if the person is already created, we are going to directly generate the invoice. But if the customer is not been created, then what I'm going to do is firstly, I'm going to create a new customer, and then for that customer, I'm going to generate the invoice. Okay. So firstly, in order to do that, we have to search for the customer in our Wave account. So that is why for the action application over here, I'm going to select it as Wave. Okay. And for the action event, I'm going to select it as get customer by email, as now we're going to search for the customer with the help of the email that we have received in our previous response. Okay. Then I'm going to click on this connect button. A window is then going to appear in front of you, on which click on add new connection, or else you can select the existing connection. After that, click on connect with Wave. A window is then going to appear in front of you, which is asking for a permission. So I'm going to click on this allow access button. As this save process in my data is perfectly saved with Pabbly Connect, so I'm going to click on this allow access button. As I've done that, we can see that we successfully authorized Wave to Pabbly Connect. After authorizing, over here it is asking for the business where customer belong in. So for the business, I'm going to select as Pabbly because this is the name of my business over here in my Wave account. Okay. After selecting the business, it is asking for the customer's email address. With the help of this email address that we're going to enter, we are going to check whether the customer is already existing in our Wave account or not. Okay. So for that, for the data of our customer email, what we are going to do is we are going to map the data. What is mapping? Mapping means inserting data from the previous step. So we're going to insert the data from the previous step of this workflow. How mapping works is that as soon as I'm going to click on this field, this was the previous response, that is Elementor new form submission. As I'm going to click on this, you can see this was the same response that was captured in our previous step. It is asking for the customer email address. In my previous response, as I want to search for the customer who have done the form submission using Elementor, I am going to select the data of the email address that I have received over here. Okay. As I selected the data from my previous response, the data is mapped. And as I mapped the data has now become dynamic. That means whenever a new response is going to be captured in our previous step, automatically the new data is going to be updated in place of this map data. Okay, so as we have entered the email address of the person who have done the form submission using Elementor, we have mapped the data of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to search for this customer in our Wave account. And in order to do that, after entering the data, I'm going to click on this save and send test request button. As I've done that, we've received a response right over here, and you can see the customer is already existing in my Wave account. And how do I know that? As we have received the customer's ID right over here. This customer ID right over here is only going to be existing over here in the response if the customer over here that we have searched is an existing customer. If the customer is not going to be created in our Wave account, if the customer is going to be a new customer, then this ID is not going to be here in this response. Okay, but we have received the ID. This means the customer is already there in our Wave account. Okay, these are the details of the customer you can see. So as the customer is already there, this means now what we're going to do is we are going to create an invoice. Now, here are two conditions I want to create invoices in. First condition is if the customer is there in our Wave account, we are going to directly create the invoice. But if the customer is not existing, if the customer is a new customer in our Wave account, in order to create invoices in Wave, firstly, we have to create that person who have done the form submission as a customer in our Wave account. And after creating the customer, we are going to create an invoice for that new customer using Wave. Okay. So now in order to conditionally run these workflows according to the requirements that we have, we are going to add another action step to this workflow. And for the action application, I'm going to select as router by Pabbly. As with help of this amazing feature by Pabbly Connect, we can run this workflow that we are creating according to our conditions that we have. And for the action event, I'm going to select it as conditionally run. And then I'm going to click on this connect button. As I'm going to do that, you can see the root 1 and the root 2 is then going to appear in front of you. Our two condition is if the customer exists in our Wave account or a new customer has been created. So we are going to set up our roots according to the requirements. For that, click on the set filter and action step button. Okay. It is asking for us to set a filter first. In order to run the workflow conditionally, we are going to set this filter. For the root one, what I want is the person who have done the form submission is the customer which has already been created in my Wave account. Okay, I want that as soon as that existing customer do the form submission, I want to directly create the invoice in my Wave account of that customer. Now for that, we are going to set up this filter first. It is asking you to select the label filter type. For the label over here, as I've already told you, this customer ID is only going to be there whenever the person who have done the form submission is an existing customer. So what I'm going to do is for the select label, I'm going to select it as this customer ID. Whenever this customer ID is going to exist in the response, that means this customer has already been created in our Wave account. Okay, so that is why for the select label, I've selected the customer ID that exists. And then I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. Okay. As I've done that, the status comes as success. This means the filter has now been applied. Okay. So now this root one is only going to be executed at a condition of whenever the customer ID in our previous response is going to be there. Okay. As the ID is going to be there, then this root one is going to run. So as the ID is already there, this means it's an existing customer. So now we're going to create the invoice directly of that customer. For that, we're going to add another action step to this workflow. And now for creating the invoice in our Wave account, I'm going to select my application over here as Wave. I'm going to select my action application as Wave. And for the action event, I'm going to select it as create invoice with basic details. Okay. After selecting the action application and the event, I'm going to click on this connect button. A window is going to appear in front of you on which I'm going to select the existing connection, or else you can add a new connection. Then I'm going to click on the save button. So now as you can see, after Wave is connected to Pabbly Connect, it is asking for all these details, and with the help of these details, the invoice in our Wave account is going to be created for the inquiry that is generated using Elementor. Okay, so now over here it is asking for the product, item description, and the item price. So as soon as the form submission is going to be done by the customer with the help of Elementor, it is going to ask for all these details like the product, item description, and the price in order to create the invoice in our Wave account. Okay, so we are going to have these details like the product, item description, and the price. For that, we are going to add lookup in our workflow. As with the help of lookup, we are going to enter the value of these details according to the customer's option selected while they're going to do the form submission using Elementor. It is asking for the product. In order to select the product, we require the product IDs. So how are we going to have the product IDs? So these are the products that I've created. You can see right over here in my Wave account. So now to have the product ID of these products, select the product from the drop down and toggle this map button on the top right corner. As you toggle it on, this is the product ID for the product smartphone. Okay, so in this similar manner, you can have the ID of all the products that you have created in your Wave account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this ID from here. Okay, now I'm going to close this tab. Now what we are going to do is we are going to add lookup in our workflow. For that, add another action step. And for the action application over here, I've selected as lookup table. Okay, and for the action event as lookup table, click on this connect button then. Now what we are going to do is you're going to see this panel, and we are going to firstly set up the lookup table right over here. So how this is going to work, that as soon as by the customer the form submission is going to be done by the Elementor, in the submission what they are going to do is they are going to select the product name that they have the inquiry for. According to this product name, we are going to have the details of this product like the product name, the ID, and the description. Okay, so for that we are going to set up this lookup table right over here. This first lookup table is for the product ID. Okay, so now let me first enter the lookup table values right here. So this is the lookup table that I've set up. I have 3 products in my Wave account that I'm going to show you right now. This is my Wave account and this is my products page right over here. I am selling these 3 products in the name of LED bulb, smartphone, and LED tube light. Okay, so over here in my lookup you can see I've added the value of 3 of my products with their IDs. The label is the product name, you can see right over here, and the value is the product ID. This is another label with the ID, and this is the third label with the ID for smartphone, LED bulb, and LED tube light. Now what we have done is we have entered the label and the value. This is the lookup table that we have created. So now what is going to happen, according to the lookup key value that we're going to enter over here in this field, we are going to have the data of the product ID of that key that we have entered in this field, and this key is going to be the product that has been selected by the customer. So how it is going to happen, as soon as I would click on this field, this was the previous response, I'm going to map the data of the product that our customer has selected. You can see this is the product name that our customer has selected from our form submission. So I'm going to select this product name from here. Now, according to this lookup key that we have selected from this table, we are going to have the response of the product ID. So as I'm going to click on the save and send test request button, over here the result label comes as LED bulb, and over here the value comes the product ID of this LED bulb. Now, whenever by the customer, as soon as they're going to select any products according to the requirement that they have, and they do the form submission with the help of Elementor, over here in the response, Pabbly Connect is going to capture the response of the product ID of the product that our customer has selected. Okay, as in our previous response right over here, if I'm going to show you, customer has selected the product name as LED bulb. So in our lookup step right over here, what happens is, as we have entered the details in the response, we have the product ID of this LED bulb. You can see right over here. Okay. So this is how you set up lookup for the product ID. I'm going to rename this step from here. I'm going to give a name again. And the name that I want it as product ID. As with the help of the step of lookup, we are fetching the data of the product ID that we are going to use while creating the invoice in our Wave account. Now, if I'm going to open my root again right over here, after the product ID, it is also asking for the item description and the item price. Now for the item description and the item price, we are going to again set up lookups to the requirements. So I'm going to close this tab from here. Firstly, we're going to set up for the product description. Okay, I'm going to again select my action application over here as lookup table. I'm going to select my action application as lookup table, event as lookup table again. Then I'm going to click on this connect button. Now over here, I'm going to again set up the lookup table first for what? For the product description. So over in the label, I'm going to enter the product name, and for the value, I'm going to enter the product description. Okay, so I'm going to fill in the required details, and I'm going to create my lookup table here. So this is my lookup table right over here. For the LED bulb, this is the description of this product. For the label of the smartphone, this is the description of smartphone. And for the label as LED tube light, this is the description of this product. Okay, so this is the lookup table that I've set up. Now for the lookup key, I'm going to again look up for the product that my customer has selected. So according to the product that my customer has selected while doing the form submission, over here in the response, Pabbly Connect is going to get the response of the product description according to the product that was selected by my customer. So as I'm going to click on the save and send test request button, over here you can see we have received the product label as LED bulb, and for the value we've received the description of this product. Okay, so now with the help of the step of our lookup, every time the product is going to be selected by the customer while doing the form submission, with the help of this step, the product description of that selected product is going to be captured in the response. So I'm going to rename the step from here, and I'm going to rename the step over here as, so I've renamed the step over here as product description. As with the help of the step, we are going to have the detail of the product description. Okay, now with the product description, I also want the product price, as while creating the invoice in our Wave account, we require the product pricing as well. For that, we're going to add another action step to this workflow. And for the action application over here, I'm going to select it again as lookup table. And for the action event as lookup table as well, then I'm going to click on this connect button. Again, now we are going to set up our lookup table for the pricing of the product, as now we want the prices of the product according to the product that has been selected by our customer. For that, I'm going to set up my lookup table again for the pricing. For the label, I'm going to select the product name, and for the value, I'm going to select the price of the product. So I'm going to enter the details. So I've entered all the values right over here. For the product, the LED bulb, the price is 100 rupees. For the label of smartphone, it is 15,000. For the label of LED tube light is 120. This is the per unit price of the product. One LED bulb cost 100 rupees. Okay, this is the per unit price of all these products. And for the lookup key, again, I'm going to select it as the product name. According to the product name selected by the customer, the per unit price is going to be captured in the response. Then I'm going to click on this save and send test request button. Over here, you can see the value of the product has been there of 100 rupees for the product that is LED bulb. This was selected by the customer. Okay, So this step is required for getting the product pricing. So I'm going to rename the step from here and I'm going to give a name as product price. This is the name. I'm going to update it. Okay. Now with the help of these lookup steps, we have the product ID, description and the price. Now with the help of these details, we are going to generate the invoice in our Wave account. For that, I'm going to go back to the step right over here. So now we're going to set up our Wave step right over here in order to create the invoice. Okay. For the business name, we're going to select the business over here in which we want to create the invoice in. After that, it is asking for the customer ID. As this root one is for the customer who are already an existing customer in our Wave account. So for the customer ID, we are going to map the data of the ID that we have received in our previous step. For mapping, we're going to toggle this map button on and this is the ID, existing data. I'm going to remove it from here. Now in this response, Wave get customer email, we have received the customer ID. You can see right over here. So I'm going to map the data of this customer ID as the invoice is going to be created for this customer right here. Okay. After that, it is asking for the product. For the product, we have received the product ID with the help of the lookup table that we have created. For that, I'm going to toggle this map button on, erase the existing data from here, and you can see this is the step product ID. In this, we have received the product ID right over here. So I'm going to map the data of the product ID. Okay. After that, it is asking for the item description, that is the product description. We are going to map the data of the product description that we have received from our previous response of the lookup table. Similarly, for the item pricing, that is the product pricing, I'm going to map the data of the product pricing right over here. As it is asking for the per unit pricing, we have entered the per unit pricing right over here. Okay. After that, it is asking for the item quantity. Item quantity is already selected by the customer. So I'm going to select the item quantity response from my previous response. Okay. After that, it is asking for the currency. The currency that I'm dealing with is INR, that is Indian rupees. So that is why I'm going to select over here as INR. Okay. After that, it is asking for the invoice title. For the invoice title, I want it as new invoice. And after new invoice, I want to enter the data of the name of my customer who have done the form submission. So I'm going to map the data of the name of my customer. So it is new invoice, first name and the last name. Okay. After that, it is asking for the invoice status. I'm going to select it as saved right over here. Okay. After filling in all the required details, it is asking for all these other details which I do not require. So I'm going to skip the part. And after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. As I've done that over here, you can see we've received a response, which is a positive response. So now I'm going to open my Wave account and then I'm going to check whether a new invoice has been created in my Wave account or not. This is my Wave account. You can see right over here on the panel over here. This is invoices. I'm going to click on this invoices option. This is the invoices page in my Wave account and you can see a new invoice has been created in my Wave account. You can see this is the invoice that is created for new invoice smart user. The name comes as of the customer as smart user. We have received the email address of the user with the phone number. We have received the details you can see right over here. Over here, we've created the invoice for the product LED bulb with the description of the LED bulb. You can see right over here. The quantity that was selected by the customer was 500. So the quantity comes as 500. Per unit price of the product is 100 rupees and the total amount is 50,000. So as you can see, for the customer, I've done the form submission using Elementor. The invoice is fully created in my Wave account. Okay. So as the invoice is created, this means our root one has been set up successfully. So now by the customer, whenever the form submission is going to be done with the help of Elementor, and if that customer is an existing customer in our Wave account, according to this root one, the invoices is going to be created. So I'm going to rename this root from here. The name of the root that I want to give is existing customer. This root one is only going to be executed whenever the form submission is going to be done by the customer and that customer is already a created customer in our Wave account, then only this root one is going to be executed. Now what I want is, as the root one for the existing customer has been created, our second condition was that if the form submission is done by the customer and they are not being created as a customer in our Wave account, I want to first create that person as a customer in my Wave account. And after creating that person as a customer in my Wave account, I want to create the invoice for that new customer that has been created. For that, what I'm going to do is, in place of adding another root in this step right over here, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just simply clone this root from here. Okay, I'm going to clone this root from here. So now I'm going to rename this cloned root and the name of the root is going to be new customer. Okay, I'm going to update the name. Now we're going to set up this root 2 for the new customer right over here. Okay. As you can see, the root has already been created as we have cloned the root. Over here, the work is going to be much easier. For the filter over here, our objective is now going to be whenever the ID is not going to exist. So this ID right over here is the customer ID right over here. So whenever this ID does not exist, so I'm going to select the filter type as does not exist, then this root 2 of the new customer should be executed. So I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. As I've done that, the status comes as error. Why so? Because over here in the response, we have the ID. But for the filter type, I've selected as does not exist. So this root 2 is only going to be executed whenever over here the ID does not exist. Okay, but as it exists, that is why the status comes as error. But when a person is going to do the form submission and they are not the customers in my Wave account, over here the status is going to come as true. Okay, so now as we have set up this filter, now what I want is I want to create that person who has done the form submission as customer in my Wave account. Now for that, we're going to add another action step to this workflow. For the action application over here, I'm going to select it as Wave. And for the action event, I'm going to select it as create a customer, because now the person who have done the form submission using Elementor, I want to create that person as a customer in my Wave account. Okay, then I'm going to click on this connect button. A window is going to appear in front of you on which you can add a new connection, but I'm going to select the existing connection. For that, I'm going to click on the save button. You can see Wave is now connected to Pabbly Connect. It is asking for us to select the business in which you want to create the customer in. For the business, I'm going to select the business that I have. After that, it is asking for the details of the customer that we're going to create in our Wave account. Okay, for that, we're going to map the data. It is asking for the customer name first. For that, I'm going to map the data of the name of my customer. This is the customer who have done the form submission using Elementor. You can see right over here. But this customer smart user is an existing customer in my Wave account. So if I'm going to enter the data of this existing customer right over here, it is not going to be created because it is already a custom, because this person is already customer in my Wave account. Now for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this root from here. I'm going to open my Elementor step. I'm going to capture the response of another form submission that I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do the form submission of the person who is not a customer in my Wave account. And after capturing the response, I'm going to create that person as a customer in my Wave account. For recapturing the response, click on this button and on yes right over here. As I'm going to do that, it is saying waiting for response. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture the response of the new customer. For that, I'm going to do the form submission first with the help of Elementor. So this is the form that I've created right over here. I'm going to fill in the required details right here. I've filled in all the required details. First name as dummy, last name as custom, email as dummy1@pabblytudes.com. For the phone number, the mobile number, street address is 12 Old Town, city as Indore, state as Madhya Pradesh, country as IN, that is India. For the pin code, the pin code. Product name comes over here. I've selected as LED bulb. Quantity I've selected as 200 as I required the 200 quantity. For the due date, I've written it as 1st of January 2025. Okay, so these are the details of the new customer. I'm going to click on the send button to do the test submission. It says the submission was successfully done. As soon as the submission is done, I'm going to open my workflow and you can see over here, Pabbly Connect has captured the response of the new submission. Okay, the product name comes as LED bulb, the quantity as 200, state as Madhya Pradesh, address as 12 Old Town. If I'm going to scroll down, this is the dummy postal code, the dummy mobile number. The name of the customer is dummy customer. Email is dummy1@pabblytudes.com with the due date, country and city. Okay, as the response of the customer has been successfully captured over here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my root to right over here. Okay, I'm going to set it up. So over here, it is asking for the customer's name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the data of this customer name right over here. First name space the last name. Okay. After that, it is asking for the first name of our customer. For that, I'm going to map the data of the first name of my customer right over here. That is dummy. For the last name over here, I'm going to map the data of the last name of my customer. I'm going to map it. For the email, I'm going to map the data of the email of my customer. I'm going to map the email. For the phone number over here, I'm going to map the data of the phone number that I've received. Okay. After that, it is asking for all these required details, which I do not require. So I'm going to skip the part and then I'm going to simply click on the save and send test request button. As I've done that, we have received the customer's ID. This means the customer has now been successfully created in my Wave account. If I'm going to open my Wave account, from the left side of the panel, I'm going to go to the customers section. You can see right over here. As I've done that, I'm going to search for the customer that I've created in the name of dummy customer. You can see over here, customer in the name of dummy customer with the email as dummy1@pabblytudes.com with a mobile number is been created in my Wave account. Now what I want is I want to create the invoice for this customer right over here who I've just now created as customer in my Wave account. Okay. As now the customer is created, I want to create an invoice for this customer. For that, we're going to set up our Another step right away for creating invoice. Okay, as we've cloned the root, this is the step for creating the invoice. It is asking for the customer ID. For the data of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to map the data of the customer ID of the customer that we have created right now. On the response, previously we received the customer ID. I'm going to map that ID right over here. Okay, after that, it is asking for the product, item description, item price, quantity. I've already filled in all the details because this was the clone step right over here. So the invoice details are automatically filled. You just have to update this customer ID in the step right over here. Okay. After that, I'm going to simply click on this save and send test request button right here. As I've done that, we have received a response, which is a positive response. So now I'm going to open my Wave account and I'm going to check whether a new invoice has been added in my Wave account or not. So this is my Wave account. You can see right over here. To check the invoices, go to the invoices section right over here. As I've come to this section, you can see a new invoice has been created for the customer. You can see right over here, dummy customer. You can see the name comes as dummy customer. Email as dummy1@pabblytudes.com. The amount comes as 20,000. This is the product that the customer selected. That is in the name of LED bulb. This is a description of that product. The quantity that we've selected was 200. So the quantity comes as 200. Per unit price is 100. The amount, the total amount of the invoice is 20,000. Okay. As the invoice is successfully created, this means our route to setup is now been done and our whole automation workflow is now been successfully created. Now what is going to happen that every time a new form submission is going to be done by the customer using Elementor, the invoice is going to be automatically created of that customer with the help of this amazing automation that we have created. For all of you guys, I'm going to do another test right now. I'm going to do a new form submission and then I'm going to check whether a new invoice for that customer has been created or not. Okay, for that I'm going to open the form that I've created using Elementor. So this is the form that I've created right over here that I've created using Elementor. Okay, with the help of this, the order and queries are going to be generated. It is asking for all these details. So I'm going to fill in the required details. So I filled in all the required details. First name as demo, last name as smart, email as demosmart1@pabblytudes.com with a dummy mobile number, address as 123 New City, city as Bhopal, state as Madhya Pradesh, country as IN, that is India. For the pin code, the dummy pin code, product name over here I've selected as smartphone. For the smartphone, I want 65 quantities. So I've selected the quantity as 65 and the due date I've selected as 20th of December 2024. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on this send button. As I've clicked on send, you can see over it says the submission was successful. As now the submission is done, I'm going to open my Wave account and check whether a new invoice has been created in my Wave account or not. For that, I'm going to open my Wave account. This is my Wave account. I'm going to go back to the invoices page. As I've come to the invoices page, you can see over here, new invoice has been created in my Wave account for Demo Smart. You can see right over here. Okay. The name of the billing person is Demo Smart. Email is demosmart1@pabblytudes.com. The product name that you selected comes over here as smartphone with the product description. You can see right away as smartphone as well. Over here, the quantity that the customer has selected was 65. It comes the quantity as 65. Pricing of per unit is 15,000 and the amount of this comes over here as 9,70,000. So you can see as the invoice is automatically created in our Wave account, this means our automation setup between Elementor and Wave is successfully done. Okay. So this was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.
Not just with these applications, you can create automation between multiple other applications with the help of Pabbly Connect. If you have any questions, you can contact us on support@pabbly.com. If you have any queries, you can check the queries on forum.pabbly.com. And if you have any pricing related issues, then you can check out this link. If you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel, hit on the like button, comment on if you have any questions or doubts, and please share this video.